In this lesson, we're going to export this model to Mudbox, and we'll do it as an OBJ. We're going to do a little, we're not going to send it to Mudbox. We're going to do it a little differently. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to return I'm going to go to frame 240, and I'm going to return my prop to its proper spot. Okay, I'm going to zero out the defaults. I'm going to hold down the Shift key and click on the little plus sign, select all of my geometry, and delete all of my keys from this from the geometry. I'm going to grab my plane geo group, and I'm going to zero out my rotates. Then I'm going to go ahead and freeze my transformations, and I'm going to scale this up. And this is important, by a factor of 4. That's going to matter because when we do our displacement in Mudbox, the size of the geometry really matters. I'm going to grab these individual pieces of geometry, hold down the Shift key to select them, and I'm going to press Shift P to unparent them. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to File, Export Selection, and I'm going to make sure I'm exporting it as an OBJ. And I'm going to it doesn't matter where you export yours. I'm going to go to the reference file, and I'm going to call this 33 plane. So if you want to, you can use my file. Okay. Next, I'm going to go to Mudbox, and I'm going to import this plane OBJ. It'll gripe at me, but it will show up. Now I've got my wireframe enabled, so you can see what we're going to do. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the body, and I'm going to press Shift D, and I'm going to go up to level 4. Now I'm going to go to objects. Now I could isolate this, but I don't want to do that because I want to hide everything. Now the reason why I'm importing it is I'm going to find that this is going to work a little better, and more importantly, it's not going to crush my my display. All right, so now I've got this selected. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to UV maps. I mean, it slows down quite a bit if I don't do it this way. If you can show them all, that's fine. But we do want to isolate this by hiding all of our geometry in the object list. We don't want to isolate, and I'll show you why in just a moment. I'm going to sculpt using Map New Operation. I'm going to select my body geo. I'm going to grab the map, and I'm going to grab it from the source images folder, like so. Normal is a regular displacement map. I'm going to go ahead and show my advanced tab. Now this is important. I'm going to go 0.25 is going to be my mid value, and my multiplier is going to be 0.25. Okay, that's how, if this is going to react with the scale and give us a proper displacement. Okay, now it didn't do it too much. If it poofs up like looks like a chia pet, that's a bad thing. All right, so now what we need to do is I'm going to go ahead and deselect, and I'm going to select this displacement. Now this displacement, what's interesting about this is it is a displacement as a sculpt layer. All right, that's a great thing, because what that means, what we can do now, I'm going to deselect the model. What we can do is we can paint out a lot of this. Now you can, if you've got a really steady hand, you can paint this out manually. Okay, and I'm using the mask brush to do this. My hand isn't so steady, so what I'm going to do instead, and because we spent so much time with our UV shells, I'm going to basically select these shells. That's why you always want to make sure you get a good UV map, and I've got my mirror selected. All right, I'm going to select in here any place where geometry inserts into the geometry itself we want to keep. I'm going to go to display, and I'm going to choose hide unselected. Okay, now that gives me everything that I need. It just shows what I need to be painting on, and I'm going to go back to sculpt tools, and I'm going to go to mask, and I'm just going to paint out this displacement. Okay. Nice thing about working with symmetry is pretty much if we see it, it's done. Now the tricky part that we're going to run into in this model is going to be, I'm going to go to display, and I'm not going to worry about the cockpit. I'm going to go to display and show all, and of course that gives us our geometry. So let me go to Actually, I can go ahead and isolate the body now because I don't need everything else. It's going to be right in here. Okay, so you may want to take a few moments using a bit of a fall off brush and brush out that edge, because when we 3D print this, all of this detail will come out, and it means you just have to do less sanding. Really, that's what it really means. It just means less sanding for you. It'll print fine, but just means you don't have to sand as much. Okay, super. All right, now I will uncheck isolate, bring everything back. And the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and select this piece, and I'm going to go to File, and I'm going to go to Export Selection. I'm going to export it as an OBJ file, and I'm going to go to my reference images, and I'm going to create a new folder, which I will call 33_plane parts. That means this is from lesson 33. And I'll call this body. Oh, we'll call it body geo. That's fine. And I'll click save. All right. Next, what I'm going to do is because I've got so much, because I know that my display is going to slow down, I'm going to go ahead and delete my object. Okay, I'm going to get rid of it. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to work with this, with the tail here. So I'm going to choose Select Object, and I'm going to press Shift-D 4 times to go to level 4, and then I'm going to bring back that operation. Sculpt using Map. This time I'm going to select the mesh, I'm going to select the elevator geo, that's this, and I'm going to press Go. When I go to my Layers tablet, I'll go to my displacement map, and now what I want to do is this one I'm going to have to mask out that displacement layer, and I'm just going to go all the way around like so. Okay. And then I'll go ahead and isolate, because all I really need to do is get that piece right there. So that should fit in. You will have to do some sanding. That is, oh, and the reason why by the way, the reason why we're doing the mask is we can hold down the control key and bring the mask back. That's the advantage to masking as opposed to erasing our layer. Okay. So once we've done that, we're in pretty good shape. I'm going to go ahead and turn off isolate, and I'm going to go to File, Export Selection, and this one I'll call Elevator. Alrighty. And I'll go ahead and delete the object, or try to. Sometimes they for some reason they don't really want to delete. And the good news is I don't have to worry necessarily about that. There we go. I don't have to worry about that because the hard part, the body was the big one. All right, so I'm going to grab the prop, kick it up to level 4, go bring back that operation, select my mesh, which is going to be prop geo, click go. Now I'm going to go ahead and paint this out. But you got to go to layers and go to displacement. And here you got to decide, I'm just going to go right up to the edge here. I'm not going to, you can get this part. And again, this is a really nice way of creating a high-res geometry that we can then print. And again, if you go too far, hold down the control key and bring it back. Okay. All right, now we'll export that. Prop geo. And we'll delete this from the object list. As I said, sometimes it doesn't delete. But like I said, it does not matter a huge amount. Now I'm going to do I'm going to do a wheel because it's going to be important. Hide this, hide cockpit, hide rudder, hide the wheel, and the wings. All right, so with this one, I'm going to do the same thing. Shift-D all the way up here, and I'm going to bring back my operation. This is what I'm going to call it left gear geo, and click go. Now the big ones that we are going to have to deal with are going to be the top here, Of course, you have to deselect, grab the top two pieces here, and the inside of the wheel wells are a good idea. And we will go to hide unselected and paint all this out. And we can see, except we have to go back to our displacement layer, and we can see that we can do this. Now, symmetry won't work because this is on either side of the body. So we're going to have to go in and do this, make sure we get it all. Mainly it's the sides that are going to matter. And the wheels themselves, I can tell you that the pins are going to have to come off, because remember, the pins we modeled to the original geometry, we modeled them down so that they wouldn't be so that they were supposed to project into the geometry itself. So they're going to have to be clipped off or sanded off when you do your sanding. Okay, so once we've done that, we can go to show all, and that's how we're going to do this. So I'll select my model and export selection, and I'll call this left gear geo, and click save. And so what we've done in this lesson is we've exported as an OBJ file, and what we're doing is we're going through systematically and we're creating our geometry, we're displacing it, and then we dialed back on the displacement in the area of the pins to save on sanding later. So in the next lesson, what we're going to do is we're going to wind up assembling the frames that we rendered in the previous lesson. But first we're going to gamma correct them in Photoshop, and I'm going to show you how to do an action to do that. And then we're going to take them into Media Encoder and assemble them into an animation.